Hello, my dear Franken friends, and welcome to Spookyou, your one-stop shop for all things ghastly and ghoulish. I'm your host, Barnabas Vixen. How horrible of you to join us. Curl up, invite your friends, and by all means, make sure those lights are out. That way it's harder to tell what may or may not be lurking around you. There's nothing like a good mystery, am I right? Tonight will feature a singular tale of devilish design, curated by those wicked weavers of woe. And without further ado, allow me to pass the reins on over to our vivacious voiceover virtuoso, Trey Falco, for tonight's sinister story. Please keep all limbs and side covers at all times. We wouldn't want anything to go missing now, would we?
Have you ever read personal accounts of people from the past who have experienced something traumatic? I'm sure you have, because in history class, all we did was read personal accounts or testimonies from people from World War I or II. Reading testimonies or true accounts of traumatic events makes it more real for people in present times to understand what they went through and to sympathize, I guess. I remember reading true accounts from old people who were evacuated to the farmlands during World War II, and all I can say is that, well, I'm glad I wasn't born in their time. In my attic, I found a box full of personal past accounts going back when slavery was legal in America. And what was strange about this box was how it appeared in my attic, because my attic has always been empty and unused. The only reason I went up in the attic was because I needed to find the holes in my roof where water was leaking through, and as well as the wind. And when I saw the box, well, I couldn't help but be interested to start reading all of the testimonies of the past. The testimonies were titled The Testimonies of Freedom, and the first one I picked up was dated back to when Abraham Lincoln had abolished slavery. The testimony was from a soldier who fought on Abraham Lincoln's side. And here's his testimony. We had won the Civil War, and Abraham Lincoln had finally managed to abolish slavery. No man or woman or child should ever experience being a slave, and I remember as a little boy, seeing slaves used to torment my heart. The inhumane practices of slavery was disgusting, and how our fellow brothers and sisters were treated as property is ungodly. I remember traveling down a field on my way home to a new life after the war, and I could see slaves on this field. I stopped my horses and I shouted out to the slaves, "You are no longer slaves, you are all free." And I could see some wanted to come with me, but the other slaves stopped them. They had no master or anyone telling them what to do or making them slaves, and I could see clearly that they had made themselves slaves. I asked one of them what was going on. One of them told me that a great evil roams the land and it eats and survives on freedom, which has made them resort to being slaves. This evil was no man, nor human, nor any that I had ever heard of. What kind of evil survives on freedom where it forces the victim to limit one's own freedom right to the point of slavery? I stayed on this field trying to help some of the slaves become free, and on their journey to freedom, we all started seeing deceased loved ones who had passed a long time ago. They were nothing like our deceased loved ones, and they all asked us if we wanted freedom from everything. Some of the slaves accepted, and I saw with my own eyes what these resurrected loved ones were. They were the evil that roamed the lands, that eat freedom. They offer death as the ultimate freedom, because in death you are free from all debt, responsibility, and learning. I myself had been infected, and I joined the other slaves on the field doing slaves' work and limiting my freedom in every way to keep those creatures at bay. I couldn't believe what I had just read, and it sounded so unbelievable, but the next testimony was even more extreme. Who are you? You're not allowed to... Barnabas? Something. It's in the booth. Oh God, Barnabas. Barnabas, help me. Barnabas, please, it's coming closer. Barnabas!
So sorry you had to hear that, dear listener. While our cleaning crew tackles the remains of that recording booth and our engineers try to resolve any lingering technical issues, let me tell you about one of our fine sponsors, Huxley's Cloning Facility. Let me ask you, listener, are there times in which you wish you had an extra set of hands that you could be in 2 places at once? Well, with a simple and somewhat painful process of DNA extraction, that wish could finally come true. Huxley sports state-of-the-art cloning facilities that are just outside of FDA-approved standards. What does this mean for you? Better, faster, more compliant super clones. Why go to those other guys when you could come by Huxley's? I mean, we're here right now, brewing up another fine narrator. Gestation period is only 2 hours. Hurry and get your clone today before it's too late. Oh, what? Oh, cut that part out. Oh, sorry. Huxley's, because our you is better in every way. Now that our announcer is back in the booth and has finally achieved a normal sense of motor control, back to your story.
It was from a World War II soldier, and he was trying to liberate people from concentration camps. The Nazis lost the war, and we were all trying our best to liberate those who had been tortured inside concentration camps. It was horrendous, and the things we found inside not even words can describe. Most concentration camp victims gladly came to us for aid, but there were those who still couldn't get out of the concentration camps. They needed to be prisoners inside the concentration camps, as they kept telling us, and they needed to constantly limit their own freedom. They also kept muttering, "I have got to keep those creatures at bay or they will take me." And at first, I didn't understand them, but I finally got it. They kept talking about some animal that feeds off human freedom, and the only way to keep them at bay is by reducing one's own freedom. So in a sense, being a prisoner in a German concentration camp is perfect for keeping some animal at bay. In the end, we forced them out of the concentration camps and forced them to be free. And then a couple of days later, they completely disappeared. And they were in a high protected facility for people suffering from mental conditions. I don't know what to make of all this, but I still see them now and then. And all they ever ask me is if I ever want to be free from all this. I do want to be free from all of this. And then the last one I read completely stumped me to the core, and it was from a police officer who found a house made for human trafficking in the year 2000. There are days as a police officer my faith in humanity goes out the window. In the year 2000, I found a house which was a home for human trafficking, and I couldn't believe it. I was disgusted, and it was full of female and male victims. How can we all be so cruel? I thought to myself, and the ones who had organized this diabolical project were supposed to be their parents, relatives, and loved ones. They begged me to listen to them, and that they will make me understand. They kept telling me that they had no choice but to make their child, sibling, and friend into a victim of human trafficking. They needed to limit their freedom as deep as possible because a group of aliens who feed and survive off freedom. I didn't listen to them, and I called for backup. And the house was raided within 30 minutes, and all of the victims were taken to either a hospital or a psychological clinic to examine their mental state. They all disappeared, even though they were all under CCTV supervision. And then in that moment, I found a box in my flat that wasn't there before. I live alone since my wife divorced me, and she has my boy most of the time. This box was full of testimonies and personal accounts from people who have some experience dealing with these supposed creatures who survive off of human freedom. And not long shortly after, my boy started to see his grandparents who have been dead for 5 years. They kept asking him whether he wanted to be free, and when I saw my parents alive and kicking, trying to make my boy accept their form of freedom, I took my boy away from them. My wife didn't know what to do, and they came to live with me for a while till we sorted everything out. I had to start limiting my boy's freedom bit by bit to keep those creatures at bay. And I understood why the human trafficking house was made. I have no choice but to use a gun and take my son's life and then my own. And my wife, well, she can carry on living. I couldn't believe what I had just read, and these testimonies have probably been read before. It's like these creatures collect testimonies to give to present victims. It's like they're mocking me, like they want me to know them and to know that they are coming for me. And then I could hear my daughter start laughing in joy when she sees Bundy, our pet dog who died last year, rolling and moving around in the garden. It's already started.
Welcome back, my darling deviants. Well, tell me, did you enjoy that twisted tale? Of course you did. I knew you had that air about you, that hunger for the horrific and the macabre. So, did we spook you? If not, then file a complaint with our complaint department detailing all accounts of non-spookiness you found in this video, and we'll get back to you in 2 to 3 millennia. Give or take a business eon or two. However, if you've enjoyed what you've just heard this evening, then make sure you leave a like on this video and annihilate that subscribe button. Such a small act of obedience is exactly what we need to put the food on the table around here. There's only so many days we can have refried kidney and toe jam hash before I'm absolutely sick of it. Spoiler alert, that ship sailed long ago. Now, I must bid you adieu. I've many things to take care of, and this outro is eating into my day off. Run along now. Have no fear, we'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday to bring you another terrible tale. Go forth, my ghastly gang, and stay spooky.